Hi, I'm Julie Barber and I am the CEO of Spark Consulting, and we work with startups and scale-ups who need to raise investment. Our job is to help them prepare for investment so that they are highly investable and really credible to investors. One of the big things that people don't really consider before they dive into raising money is the things that they need to think about in advance. So they often kind of dive into the process and then start falling over themselves. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is 5 essential things to think about before you raise any money. So the first one of those is preparation. In order to raise money for your company, you have to have all kinds of things ready for investors to look at. You have to have a pitch deck, you have to have a business plan, you have to have an investment strategy, who you're actually going to try and raise money from. You have to be ready for a due diligence exercise. If someone says yes, they're going to go straight into due diligence, and if you're not ready for that, it can make you look really unprofessional and drag out your investment process for far longer than it needs to. So the preparation is key, and that can take anywhere between 4 to 12 weeks, depending on how organised you are as a business already and how many of those things you might have to hand in the first place. Typically not many, so it takes quite a lot of work to get to that stage. The second thing that you need to think about as well is actually how long the raise life cycle is. So depending on the type of investment that you go for, it could take you anywhere between 6 weeks to a year to raise money. So when you're on the start of that process and thinking about going into it, you really need to be thinking about which route am I taking, how long is that going to take, and for some businesses, have we got enough runway, available cash left for us to be able to take that investment route, or are we going to run out of money in the middle of trying to raise the next round of finance? Angel investors can be much quicker, particularly if they're people that you've already got relationships with. They might go through due diligence really quickly and you might be done in 6 weeks. Lovely. Some venture capital funds, or particularly corporate venture capital funds, can be 9 months or a year before you'd actually get through all of the agreement stage. So it's really important to have in your mind, how long have we got to do this job, and does that dictate which route we should actually go? The third point, availability, your availability. If you're going to raise money for your business, it's a full-time job and then some. So who's going to run your business while you're raising money? And that's something that single founders often fall foul of. They end up taking their eye off the ball, and then actually their numbers are dropping on their revenue because they're trying to raise money, and then that starts putting the investors off, and you can actually lose the deal because your business is going down rather than up. If you've got a co-founder, then you very clearly need to split those responsibilities and say, you will run the business, I will raise the money. And then each of you can be very clear about what you're targeted on and make sure that both sides are getting full attention. But you need to figure out quite often in advance of entering the raise process how you're going to delegate all the stuff that's currently yours. And that takes time to organise. Advice. So lots of people try to go it alone through the raise process. If you haven't done it before particularly, it's really worth seeking out proper advice for different stages of raising money. If you're crowdfunding, for instance, you don't just put your deck up on Crowdcube and loads of people throw money at you. You actually have to bring your own crowd. And if you don't know how to do that, then engaging a PR or marketing agency is really important to make sure that your raise process goes smoothly. Likewise, actually lawyering up from the start before you even think about talking to an investor is critical, because if you lawyer up at the start, they will advise you all the way through. You won't fall over weird terms in a term sheet that later you find in your investment agreement and go, hang on a minute, that says they can buy the rest of my company for 50p. Those are the things that they will help you with all the way through. So leaving the lawyers until you think you've got everything sorted is dangerous. So you need to think about when you bring advice in. And likewise, if you're not used to preparing for a raise, then getting someone like us or other people that help prepare companies for raising money is really critical, because it will save you money, it will make you look more professional, and it raises your chances of actually getting investment in the first place. The final point we're going to cover is costs. It costs money to raise money. Lots of people, particularly if they're early stage startups, oh, we haven't got any money. Well, you're not going to be able to raise any money then, because it's going to cost you. You've got to work out what the cost of your raise is. And most of those people that you need to help you aren't going to say, we'll wait until you've raised and then you can pay us. The lawyers probably will wait until you've raised, because they'll send their invoice after they finish the investment agreements, which is handy. But marketing and PR agencies will probably expect to be paid partway through. People like Spark, who help you get ready for investment, will probably need retainer funds up front at the very least, if not full payment. So you need to be really aware of what it's going to cost you when you're going to have to make those payments. So those are the 5 things that people don't really think of before they raise investment, but they would make your life so much easier if you actually worked through all those steps in advance before you set foot out the door and start trying to talk to investors. So I hope that's been helpful to everyone. Does anyone have any questions?
So apart from your 5 steps, what would be the one piece of key advice that you would give to a business early on in their phase? So I've heard your 5 principles, it might be it's one of those, but one piece of key advice that's essential before you start the process.
Plan it really thoroughly, because there's so much that you have to do, and there's so much that you have to get right, and you have to do things in the right order to make sure that, again, you don't trip yourself up. So spending the time on really planning out what you're going to do, so you don't waste time and effort, because it takes enough time anyway. It's painful enough. Don't make it worse. So if you plan it well at the start, you're much more likely to have less of a bumpy ride through the process.
Thank you.
And also, have you come across a company that you then advise don't go for a raise because you're not in a position to succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was on the phone to a company on Tuesday this week who said, oh, we've got 3 months run rate left. Well, you're not going to raise money in it. They weren't even prepared. So that's going to take them up to 8 weeks to prepare. That left them 4 weeks of money left to go out and raise money and get an investment agreement. It's not going to happen. But as it turned out, they were a deeply technical company working in augmented reality with 3 techie guys who loved building this stuff, but they'd never heard of R&D tax credits. So actually my advice to them was quickly go and get an R&D tax credit claim filed with a really good company who'll be sure of making that happen, because actually you can raise finance against an impending R&D tax credit claim, which would give you enough cash flow to extend your runway to 6 or 9 months, and then you can go and do a raise at your leisure when you're not desperate for cash. But you never want to raise when you're desperate. So